wait for people to roll in, put it on all messages, and hopefully last time I did my public Q&A. This is a members Q&A, so if you're a future person watching this as an upload, you can become a member and ask questions on the members only Q&A. If you can't afford to, don't worry about it. You can just watch my public Q&A on Friday. These are just a way for me to give a space for members, but did all that spiel and now I forgot what I was saying. Oh no, last time it was like really weird. Something was wrong. I don't remember. I don't think that's even what I was gonna say. Just a human. uh, okay. Oh, that's what it was. Last time I had it on all comments on the Friday Q&A and it wasn't showing me barely any comments and that was weird. And so we'll see if that happens here. Hey everybody, rolling in. Happy Sunday. Let's make some tea. I'm going to do the Taiping one. And I'm just going to put this out there. There was a moment, and by a moment, I mean like a year and a half, where I certainly over-purchased tea. I was like, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, that sounds good. Especially when I realized, when I was doing my tea times, and I was like, hey, technically, if I'm using this tea in a video that I have to pay taxes on the revenue, the tea itself is a tax deduction, right? So that made it a little easier for me to justify overspending on tea, but I'm really glad that I did because, boy, in the tea community, people are freaking out right now about the tariffs, which is understandable because most tea, like this one, comes from China, right? Like people think of China and they have like these assumptions of like poor quality things or like dangerous stuff, and that stuff is very real. But when it comes to their tea, our herbs they specifically use and their TCM type stuff, it's usually pretty high quality stuff. So I'm just kind of happy that I hoarded it because that is one of my favorites. Okay, I'm gonna get the water going here. Let some people roll in. Hey, everybody, rolling in. But yeah, I'm pretty grateful that I overbought tea because I can maybe wait and see. I do not have any justification to buy any more tea. For a while, I have a lot of it. And the really cool thing about the camellia sinensis plant, which is what I mean when I'm saying tea, because I know we make herbal teas and stuff, but technically that's not tea. It's like herbal tisane. But regardless, is the really cool thing about camellia sinensis, the plant, which is what this tea is made out of, and green tea, white tea, it's all just the same plant processed in different ways, different varieties of the plant, but the same plant. She gets better as she ages. Right, so like some people will say some teas don't, but as the camellia sinensis plant ages, certain compounds break down and different like really beneficial like amino acids or phenols and things like that become available to you. So like a young tea can taste different than the old tea, right? And I just think that's really cool. I stocked up on everything that I thought may go up in price that was going to be needing some time within the next 6 months. Yeah, I have, for me, and like as a small business owner who, I mean, packaging stuff comes from China. There's no real way around it. And I hope it starts being made in America again. So I don't really get, I don't really get any herbs excluding my pine pollen from China. That's a scary one for me, tariff wise. So we're looking around, but like again, China has like the highest quality pine pollen you can get because they have a specific forest in their area where it's like governmentally protected because it's for the pine pollen. Because like I said, when it comes to herbs and things they use for TCM, which is their medical system over there for the most part, they don't mess around, and so it's like super pristine in that particular area of China. There's a place in Canada that I'm interested in, but they have tariffs too, but they will not be 100+%. And so I'm just trying to, I'm stocked out for the moment, but I'm kind of looking around, at what I can do. But yeah, it's been on my mind, like small businesses will definitely take a hit. Now, just to put this out there, in the long run, like if they do take away, like if the IRS goes away. Like, I want you to know that, like, I get fucking bent over yearly by the IRS. It's crazy. Like, small business owners, like if I had the money that the IRS has taken from me over the past decade of running this business, I would like own my home and like, not be worried about the cost of groceries, or like, at least less worried. Like, it's crazy. Um and then, and I'm just ranting about it, but like, because we're set up as like an S-corp to help with the tax burden, we take paychecks, but because we're the business owners and the employees, our paycheck, we pay taxes out of it twice because we're also the employee, so we have to match the taxes. So it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm like, that would be pretty fantastic if the IRS went away in that regard. But yeah. Um, okay, so, but that's enough of that. And that's, for me, that's not even like political talk, that's just money. We're all, no matter what side of the spectrum you lay on, whatever your beliefs are, money is unfortunately something that we all need to exist. And if we could find a way for it to be taken from us less, that benefits everybody, right? But who knows? Okay, making some tea. Yeah, so did everybody get to watch my new video? I did that first foraging video, not my first. I have hundreds of foraging videos, but like my first like come with me nature walk style, and I am going to start doing more of those, definitely. Right. I This one, it took a hard hit algorithm wise, and so I think what I'm gonna do is the nature walk videos that are long format like that. I think they're just gonna be published automatically. You don't have to be a member to view it first, because it kind of like tells YouTube that like my video was posted a week ago and only got X amount of interaction from members, and so it's like, oh, unless I had like thousands of members, which I don't, it just tells it that not a lot of people viewed it. And so I think I'll make those ones instantly public, and then the how-to type videos like I normally do for members, because uh, those ones don't seem to get hit so hard when they're members only first, right? And so I'm slowly like working my way back into like video content. I really fell off for a while there, and I'm trying not to beat myself up about it, because I'm also like allowed to be human. And if I don't listen to myself while I'm like, I can't push any harder right now, I'm going through a bunch of like stuff with my health and this and this and that, uh, then I'm less likely to be burnt out and step back into it when I feel better, if that makes sense. So I don't always follow that rule, but I have been feeling like super fucking stressed out lately over stuff, but also better. And so it's a combination of stuff, and so I know that when I get through this stressful patch, that I will come out of that feeling better than before. If that makes sense, right? Like, some stress is just unavoidable. We are adults and that stuff happens, but that is ultimately, the plan. I'm having to do like a bunch of restructuring with like business and like online stuff, like online work, and just it's my least favorite form of work. Like, I don't have anybody who like designs my website for me or like runs it for me, or like it's all me. Like, everything you see, every single label you've ever seen, every single word on my website for like the apothecary, everything you've ever seen uploaded or written or anything, it's all me. I don't have like a team of like busy beavers behind the scene doing stuff for me, and that's why you see it come and go in waves of like, wow, this is really looking great, and then why'd it go quiet? Because it's just me. But yeah, but that's just like where I'm at right now, and I feel like, but I just have to remind myself that like I'll get through it and it'll pass, and then I'll be like, oh, that's all done, thank God. And then I don't have to think about it for a while, and I can focus on other things. And, and then something else will break, and I'll be like, oh, now I have to fix that. It's just the way it goes. Oh, it smells so good. This is one of my favorites. I really love the Taiping tea. First of all, she's beautiful and looks like she's, like, dancing seaweed. But she's so, like, milky textured and soft in the mouth, which is weird to say out loud, but it is the truth, you know. And she just has like a really gentle like green vegetal taste, but not in like a chlorophyll way. Like she's my favorite lately. I think in the past 6 months she's really been my favorite. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, and it's not even very strong. And I could probably play around with the timing and the amount used and the water temperature to make it stronger if I wanted to, but I don't know why because I enjoy it now. So, all right, members, you know the deal. If you have a question, say question, and I'll answer your question. And if not, I will just sit here and drink tea. But I also think I'm gonna. What happens? Let me check something. Chat filter, top messages. Just making sure that everything's coming through because last time it didn't work. All message people are like, this woman just needs to accept the fact that nobody has questions for her. Melody's Garden Jewel says, I made the nettle infusion the other day, and I know you had a hard time describing what it tastes like. I think it tastes like the water that you cook spinach in. Yeah, you know, it could. I could see that, definitely. It definitely has that green flavor. We had congee for breakfast this morning, which is like a rice type, I guess call it pudding, but it's not sweet. It's like savory, right? And I had big portobello mushrooms and nettle and like some leftover like steak bones and that, you know, for like flavor, and it was pretty good. And I guess it did kind of have that like green spinachy flavor, right? Question: can you use apple tree blossoms for anything medicinal? You know, you can use it like a cough syrup, right? Like if you made yourself like an infused vinegar or an infused honey, or even like an oxymel, which is like vinegar with honey, or a spirited elixir, you know, which is just, well, just an elixir, just a tincture that has honey in it. I would be pretty set on adding honey to it because blooms have a higher water content, and so you really want something that's really all about extracting the water soluble properties. And while vodka is 50-50 water alcohol, so you got 50% water in there, adding in that extra little bit of honey will just help pull out those extracts, and she'd be really good for dealing with coughs and stuff like that. I wouldn't use her on a daily basis, like constantly all the time, right? Because the blooms, like the seeds, have glycogens in them, which are a precursor to cyanide. Terrifies people, but it's not. You'd have to like sit there and like really hurt yourself. But you know, like really be like, I am going to eat all these blooms in one go, right? But you don't have to do it that way, and you could just make a nice elixir. Thank you so much for the amazing super Gina Gonzalez. And she asked, question, I kept my oil infusion on my seed heating mat for at 100. Did I ruin it? No. Sometimes my seed heating box, because like I went and bought forever ago one of those big like plastic, rugged plastic storage boxes people use outside for like their hoses and like pool toys and stuff, right? I was like, that's perfect because it's plastic, not wood. I can wipe it down, right? And then I put the seed heating mat in the bottom of it, and then I'll put my jars over it, and then I'll put another seed heating mat on top and do another layer of jars, right? And it easily hits 120 degrees in that box when it's peak infusion, and that's fine. You really want to keep your herbs under about 140 or 130ish to stop from degrading the properties, right? But we're also kind of trying to degrade it a little bit so it breaks down and goes into the oil. So at 100 degrees you are perfectly fine. um Okay, so question. I've been taking your wild yam chamomile, and it has definitely helped. Lots of my peri symptoms except weight gain. 40 pounds in a year and a half, and I go up and down the same 6 pounds for months. Yeah, you might need to look more into supporting your thyroid. There's something going on with your metabolism, right? You might have to like look at the amount of like movement you do, although I don't subscribe to the calorie in, calorie out concept because the metabolism is more complex than that. But when we do move our body more and we build more muscle in particular, I'm not a fan of cardio, I'm all about like muscle building, you will naturally burn more like stored fatty tissue, right? But also as we age, we are meant to gain weight. And so like if you're not like feeling like, if you're not technically like morbidly obese, but you just feel uncomfortable because your body's changed as you've gotten older, I understand that that's hard. But also look into like your insulin regulation as well as like your cortisol, right? Sometimes when our insulin and we have like insulin resistance or like our cortisol is really high from stress hormones, we just hold on to weight because our fatty metabolism is turned off, right? And so another thing you could look into potentially would be carnitine. But if you don't have a deficiency in it, carnitine turns on like fat metabolism. You want to make sure that you're taking it alongside of like a garlic supplement, because if you aren't low in carnitine or don't have a mutation like I do for wasting it, and you take a ton of it, it can be a little hard on your heart. They say there's debate about it, right? It's kind of, but you can take just a garlic supplement and counteract the problems they believe that might occur with that. Let me jump down here. Question: How can I make? Okay, so how can I make sure my cayenne salve doesn't settle at the bottom with the cayenne powder? I've tried alternating between beeswax ratio, but I can't figure it out. It'll naturally settle a little bit. Really, the only way to stop that from happening entirely is to kind of stir it as it's cooling to the point where it's cooled enough that it's going to suspend it, right? You could also, if it really bugs you, you could take it out of the jar and whip it and turn it kind of like into that hand cream video that I showed, and it would make it suspend in it, right? And then if you really want to get around it, you could go like a full-on oil infusion with cayenne salve and any other herbs you want, and let that infuse like slow and low over like a seed heating mat for like at least 3 to 4 weeks, and then you could strain it out and have no herbs in it, but all the capsaicin and other properties of whatever herbs you've used will be in that oil. And so that's definitely something that you could consider doing either way. Thank you so much for the super, Denise Haney. I appreciate the cute little lemon. Okay, yeah, I'm actually pretty excited. It's been a long, hard project to bring my pain salve back. And I know that I could make it myself, but I promised my body that I promised my body that any production work would not be done by my body anymore, right? Doesn't matter what equipment I have or whatever. I've outgrown it all. And so at first it took forever to find a place that would actually work with whole herbs versus essential oils, and then to nail down like the infusion process with them. And then because it's at a production facility, I had to do a bunch of like quality and like limitation testing and stuff. And we're in the tail end of it, and probably about 2 months. And I've been at it for 10 months now or more. In about 2 months, my hemp oil pain salve will be back, and I'm so excited for that. I know people are very like they're missing it, but like just as a business, I'm like I need it to come back. But I'll also have my bare lip balm back and my lash serum back, my rosemary lash serum. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, it was like crazy hard to find a facility that would work with me with whole herbs. You like 99% of facilities in the United States are making cosmetics and selling them all over in the shelves and stuff like that. Almost 99%, probably 100% of everything you see in the store doesn't have any actual real herbs in it. It's just all extracts, because these facilities don't want to take up like their floor time to infuse something for you, or like have to do R&D or any of this stuff. And so it's it's been a big process. A big scary process. Okay, so what's your take on adding DMSO to salves, balms, creams to help the herbs settle deeper into the skin? You can't, because oil and water don't mix without an emulsifier. And then you could do creams if you were doing water-based emulsification, but the problem with that is two things. One, you'll hurt yourself if you add it to a hot water base, because it'll make the vapor come off and you'll like breathe that in and hurt your lungs. And two, if you add it at the end, it will likely destabilize your formula. Like if you add it in the cool down phase, even if it's below 100 degrees, it will likely destabilize your formula. And then if you add it to like oils or balms, it will actually cause bacteria to grow, because even though we think of alcohol as an alcohol, it's still water. And the alcohol will evaporate off, but then the water content is left behind, and water plus oil equals bacterial explosion, which is why you have to use preservatives. But even if you try to add a preservative to your balm or your salve, what happens is what happens is it's not emulsified together, so the preservative won't even interact with the water, and it just doesn't work that way, right? But if you really want to trick your body into absorbing it further, add tallow. I'm not really a fan of DMSO. I know like a lot of people like are super into it, but you know it pulls things all the way into your bloodstream, and it can be hard on your liver and your kidneys and things like that. And it was just kind of one of those fad things that like really took off, right? And I'm not saying that it doesn't have applications or beneficial uses, but you're not always wanting to get everything into your bloodstream, right? And what part of it is it pulling? Let's say you make a comfrey salve, for example, and you use comfrey root, right? I use comfrey root in a lot of my topical applications because I know it's just sitting there topical. But if there was DMSO involved, you would then pull the alkaloids likely that are damaging to your liver into your system, and then it would cause damage. But tallow, you're a red meat animal. Tallow comes from red meat animals like cattle, things like that. Cattle, goat, deer, whatever. And your body really recognizes these fats, and so it will pull it past, like deeper than the first layer of your skin, trying to absorb that fat that it needs, right? And by proxy, if you have that in your salve or whatever you're using that's infused, it will pull it deeper into your skin that way, you know. Um, but yeah, I see a lot of people trying to do that. Okay, so question. I make a Mullen cough syrup with organic dark brown sugar. Would I be able to use honey instead? I layer the sugar and the blooms and set it in a window. Yeah, you could make a fermented honey, but stop putting your herbs in the window. I know they look really pretty and it's aesthetic and it makes the color change faster, but the sun, her job out of many is to like decay things, right? Like the sun is what starts breaking things down. And in this case, we know that sunlight on herbs breaks down their herbal properties beyond use quickly, right? Like if you ever walk into like an herb shop and like they have all their herbs in the front window for all the sunlight to hit and they're not just using that as a display but selling it to you, don't buy from there because all those herbs will have lost their potency substantially. You don't have to make it like a vampire and keep it in the darkest place in the world, but I wouldn't put it in the sun. And if you were going to sit it in the window for the heat, put something around it, like, you know, knit something to go over it or slide a sock over the jar, paper bag, something to stop the sun from directly hitting it. But you could make a Mullen infused honey where you basically allow the honey to ferment with the Mullen, right? Because you could use dried Mullen too if you didn't want the fermentation process to happen. But if you did ferment, you could then like simmer it down a little bit to get the water content off so it remains stable again. But there's also definitely syrup recipes out there with honey, you know, that you can use on your stovetop and stuff. But I'm also not afraid of brown sugar, right? You know, it's just molasses and cane sugar. Maybe find an organic one, right? So you don't have as many sulfides maybe hiding in there. Uh, oh, you do cover it. Yeah. Well, sorry. She's like, uh oh. But yeah, I mean, it's always worth mentioning because people, you know, see I put my herbs in the window, you know, and I always cringe when I see that. And like, it's like I'll put something in the sun to take a picture of it, but then it like goes right back, you know, things like that. Question. Hi, April. I was making an infused oil before I moved, so I packed them and then forgot about them until recently, but the herbs and oil froze stiff. Should I throw it away or start over? It depends. If they were made with dried plant matter, you're fine. Just strain them and use them. If they were made with fresh or wilted plant matter, I'd probably toss them out and start again. But that's a really cool thing about when you work with dried plant matter is it's not going to go rancid or mold on you from the added water content. And you can go way longer with your oil infusion than you ever could with fresh or wilted plant matter, right? I talk about that in my which book is it here? In my oil infusion book, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. From my Common Ways for Common People book series. So I talk about the debate where they're like, people are like, oh, fresh oil tinctures are the most potent. But I'm like, but you actually have like a lot of limitations. And like, you're right. In the first 4 to 5 weeks of a fresh or the first few weeks, I should say, of a fresh oil infusion, it will look like it's stronger color and all this type of stuff, but then you're limited by how long you can let it infuse, and you end up not getting a lot of the properties from the plant. Plus, if the plant is wet and that's water plus oil, beyond the bacterial growth factor, water and oil can't go together. So you actually limit out how much that you can actually absorb into your oil, because it's never going to absorb the water soluble properties while it's wet, because they literally can't go together scientifically, right? But if you let it infuse for a long time, I'm talking between 6, 8, 10 weeks, that oil infusion will be stronger than anything you've ever made. And it's because you can start breaking down the cellular structure of the plant matter and really extract these things without the limits of your oil going rancid or the plant matter molding or anything like that. So I'm a huge fan of dried herb infusions, and I only ever really use a handful of herbs, like freshly wilted, for an infusion, and that's because you have to, like with something like St. John's wort. Um, but yeah, that's why it's like it's really cool. Like I've had stuff that like I'm like, oh well, that's been sitting for 11 months. I'm like, that's the best oil I've ever made, right? Like it's just nice and strong. Um, okay, so I know homemade milk kefir is best. I was curious about the organic Turkish kefir capsules. They sell them on Amazon. Are they okay? I don't know much about them, but I know that there's probably not very much CFU in them, which means like colonizing fruiting units like in your body, right? And it depends on like the flow agents, and they'll be dead. So, I mean, if that's really all you can do, like if you can't make milk kefir for yourself, but I'm not a big fan of them, of probiotics like that in general, because they don't really do what you want them to do in your body. I mean, they might help some people at some times, but it's kind of the thing where, like, if you stop using it, it won't be there because it's not alive enough to colonize your gut, if that makes sense. Whereas if you're drinking living milk kefir or water kefir, things like that, the bacteria is alive, it's there in huge amounts, and you are like digesting something that can colonize your gut, right? So like people can drink milk kefir and then like take a month or two break, and the bacteria strains are still alive and living in their gut upon testing, versus probiotics are usually gone in 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so question. My husband, 42, unfortunately, dyslexic skipped a line. 42 is having memory issues brought on by stress. Unfortunately, the stress isn't going away. Herb suggestions for getting through long-term stress. So, I deeply relate to this as a person who has existed in high stress levels for a very long time and have had mental cognition impacts and things like that. And I also deeply resonate to the fact that, like, you can't just remove the stress sometimes. There's nothing you can do, you know, you're existing in it. But what he can do is start working on lowering those stress hormones, right? Because cortisol is going in there. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's deeply, like, repressing his glutamate levels, it's repressing his GABA and his dopamine levels, and he's just like swimming in stress. You could start working with like California poppy and ginkgo biloba to push back against the heightened stress hormones, because they both support like dopamine and GABA together. And then also ginkgo obviously helps with memory, and like shamelessly I have a synergism capsule for that. I do, but you don't have to get those herbs from me. You could get them as a tea or tincture or whatever. I would still recommend that regardless if I had it for sale or not. But then like start looking into like the vitamins and nutrients that get depleted from stress, which are magnesium and B12 and vitamin C. There's other ones, but those three get burned through really fast, because we think of stress as being mental, but it's always physical. And the more stressed that we are and the higher our cortisol level is, the more oxidative stress we're living under. And then when that inflammation kicks in, all those levels go boom, and you lose it because your body uses those particular nutrients to deal with stress, right? And the crazy thing about all of those is that they're a water soluble nutrient, B12, vitamin C, and magnesium. So you piss it out daily, right? You have to be taking in that amount every day, and you piss it out daily. And if you're depleted, it's harder and harder to build it up in your body, you know. And then once you got that stuff under his belt, you could probably start reframing some of the narrative mentally. Like the stress is still there and we're still existing with it, but his inner narrative is probably pretty brutal right now. Like if he's not getting a break from thinking about it, existing in it, like if he's not taking moments or like reframing it, and it's hard to do that when you're already depleted. So those are the things that I would consider doing, and that when I'm on top of my game, that I'm doing pretty consistently to deal with my stress load. Um, Question: I remember you saying you can freeze herbs. Is there a time limit? Ones that you shouldn't freeze when using it for things like tinctures, not oil things. So yeah, if you're using it for like tinctures, elixirs, infused honeys, vinegars, just like any food that you freeze, especially like vegetable matter, you'll want to use that up within about 8 months of freezing. Berries can last a little longer, roots can last a little longer, and mushrooms can last a little longer. Well, the mushrooms, if they're woody mushrooms, if they're like really soft mushrooms, like an oyster mushroom, you really want to use that up in like 3 months because they get kind of freezer burnt after that. But the cool thing about freezing your herbs before you make a tincture is that you bust open all the cellular structure. So just like putting a pop or a soda, whatever you call it, can in the freezer, and then you forget it and it blows up because it expanded on the inside and it broke open the pop container, right? Think of a cellular structure in a plant the same way. When you freeze it, the water content in the cell expands and it busts open that cell. And ultimately, we're always trying to break open the cellular structure of something, whether it's for the nutrition or, the medicinal properties we're after, like the compounds and stuff. It's all in that cellular structure. So you want to go put. And so I find it actually makes tinctures more potent sometimes, like in a good way, but still very balanced because you're still using fresh plant matter because it still has its water soluble properties intact. And there's not any herb that I can think of that I wouldn't freeze. I've even frozen St. John's wort before and then used it beautifully to make a tincture, and or a water infusion to turn into a gel, so you can have like a topical gel application of the hypericin. I don't know. I'm not saying that word right today. Not even gonna try it. Okay. Okay, so what is my favorite use for Tulsi? I really like Tulsi for dealing with stress. She's a good option, but I am conflicted with the mints. And I bring this up because like Tulsi is fantastic. She's holy basil. She's in the mint family, just like, catnip, motherwort, all this stuff. We should use them for stress, but and they're really good at like helping us like lower our cortisol issues and like support our adrenal function. But like any mint, there's one drawback. If you are constantly taking in Tulsi, like for months at a time, like some people do, and then they're like, oh, I'm so tired all the time. But, I'm like, well, that's because mints downregulate thyroid production. So, like, I really like motherwort for stress, and you can take her in super tiny amounts. But, like, things like Tulsi or whatever, people tend to drink big cups of tea of her because she tastes really good, right? And that's really great at first. But if you're doing that every day, all day, not taking breaks, which is super common advice from herbalists, you end up downregulating your thyroid, and when you downregulate your thyroid, all of your stress hormones and the rest of your endocrine stuff gets thrown off, and your pituitary gland, which is dealing with cortisol and helping your body function, starts to struggle too, because your pituitary gland and your thyroid communicate together, as well as your adrenal glands. It's like the HPA axis is what they call it. And so, that's an issue with Tulsi. But generally, I like her for stress and anxiety and things like that. But we should be using her as a tool alongside of other like lifestyle changes and like food and nutrients, and not just leaning on her every day, all day for support, right? Okay. So, question: Cushing disease in my dogs. My childless brother's dog is 13. His vet says RX for dogs is $100 a month, which he can't afford. Any herbs I can grow to help my my nephew dog? That's cute. Um, so that's rough. So that's really high cortisol, right? Cushing's is the one with really high cortisol, I believe. repressing cortisol, or is that the one with really low cortisol? There's two. No, Addison's is the one with low cortisol, I believe, and Cushing's the one with high. I could be flipping them. Let's talk about both. Just because, okay, so if there's really high cortisol, you would have to work with something that's completely opposing that, like pushing the cortisol level back. And you could again step into like something like progesterone. Progest E would work probably pretty well because it directly opposes cortisol. My brain just let me work through it. And then you could probably also work again with the California poppy and the ginkgo to kind of push back against that. Check the dog's food. If there's lots of like nasty seed oils and things in there, and they usually are, and dog food, that could also be causing lots of oxidation in the body, which could increase that cortisol because it's that stress cycle. If it's low cortisol, and my brain didn't remember which way it went with which Cushing's versus Addison's, if it's low cortisol, usually I suspect vitamin C issues, but that's weird because a dog, like humans and guinea pigs are just about the only mammals that can't create their own vitamin C, right? And vitamin C directly opposes like or is needed for like cortisol production. But if the dog isn't producing enough vitamin C for that, I wonder if there's something wrong with its liver. So maybe you could support liver function. And you could do that by like using a small amount of like and how old the dog is, I suspect a liver function. You could use a small amount of like milk thistle seed in their food, right? But also, and this is super random, and it'll take some research. There's this drug called rapamycin, and it's an organ rejection drug, but they have all these studies for longevity on dogs where like they're realizing that it like makes people live longer. It basically creates like a fasting state in your body without starving, so it gets rid of like all of your old cells. And they have shown with dogs, giving them rapamycin. There's studies. You have to look at the studies and the weight value and everything to decide what amount you're going to give the dog, right? And you'd have to order it from like All Day Chemist or somewhere like that because you'd be hard pressed to get a prescription for it for your dog. But if you decided to do the research and make that choice, I've seen people talk about Rapa bringing their dogs back from like the brink of death. Like it's crazy stuff. And if Sally, my little dog, hadn't have been like snatched away from me. Like she just got like 411. Like was outside for like 5 minutes and just disappeared. And it wasn't a predator. It was I would have her on Rapa because she was like 15 years old in like my life, you know. But that's something that you can consider from a pharmaceutical perspective. And while it will cost money, if you decided to go that route and order it from All Day Chemist, it's a lot cheaper than $100 a month, right? So that's a random thing. Weird question. My friend and I had to use permethrin cream roughly 5 times in 2 months because of scabies. Okay, now I get it. And have been experiencing extreme brain fog. I'm struggling to know where to start for help. This will seem like a cop-out, but it's going to help you. You're going to go on to Chat GPT, and I don't want you to actually use the main Chat GPT, so you need an account that you're actually logged into. And then you're going to go into the search GPTs, because a lot of people don't know this, but like there are millions of other GPTs within Chat GPT that people have built. There's this really cool one called Scispace, Scispace, just like it sounds. That is the coolest GPT anybody has ever created, but I'm a nerd. Basically, they connected it to everything. It's connected to PubMed, Science Direct, medical journals, and now it has access to all of the internet, just like ChatGPT does, so it's not limited. I used to have to give it permission to search and stuff like that, but now you can just type in it. And I want you to take the name of that medication, and I want you to say, I would like you to find me any studies, journals, anything and everything you can find about how medication name, the name of the cream, impacts the human body. And I want you to ask, what nutrients does it deplete? What pathways does it disrupt in the brain? all those types of questions. And you can even put in the symptoms that you're having and see what it comes up with. And it can say, well, this might do this, might do this. And I want you to be like, I want you to link it all together for me. And I want you to find me studies. And then you can be like, I want you to tell me what might reverse this, whether it's nutrient, antihistamine, something like that, and it would probably come back up with you. And that, it is, oh my god, I love it. I know that AI will be the death of us, and eventually I'm gonna have to fucking run to the woods with like my goats and try to survive some dystopian future. I understand that, but adapt or die, and right now I'm adapting to it, and I love it because my research brain is like, find me all the things, right? And what's really cool with Scispace is you can ask it to give you the actual links and references, and that way it's not making stuff up like the Chat GPT one does, right? So it has to be from real links and references, and so I can be like, boom, I have all this stuff to sort through, and then I can even do things like, and this is just you watching my brain, I can say, I want you to bring up all the related studies within that study you found me, and I want you to like dissect them for me and show me which ones are relative to what I'm interested in. And then it's suddenly like I have like 100+ studies to look at of something that I would like to see. Right? I have this one thread that is probably, it would probably take people the better part of a year to like manually read it all. As I go through studies and stuff like that, and it's so handy. It really is. Um, and I think that people can be really empowered by it with their health, like what medication they're using or what symptoms they're having, or even asking it to interpret lab results, things like that. Like, I seriously, I would not be surprised within the next 5 years if most medical doctors were replaced by some version of AI. At least primary care physicians. You have to be a specialist to keep your job. Right, anyhow, so it has been about 40 minutes. I'm gonna jump off and get about my day. My daughter's got to go to her art class and all that type of stuff, and I'm gonna try to clean the kitchen. I gotta do that regardless. And then record a how-to video coming up here. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you're a future person watching this and you want to support my capacity to exist, you can become a member like everybody in this video asking a question was. It's just a way to throw me a couple bucks a month. There's nothing really hidden behind a paywall. You do get early access to videos as I'm able to upload them, and you do get these Sunday Q&A members only space. But again, if you can't afford, I have my Friday public to everybody Q&A. I'm just more likely to be able to, like, realistically as a human answer your question here versus the hundreds that are scrolling by on the public one, right? If you can't do that, or even if you can, consider checking out my shop. I make something for everybody. It's another great way to support me. I've got books, creams, gels, synergism capsules. Definitely go check it out. And if you would like to support me and you can't afford to do any of that, or you can't afford to become a member, it's okay. I understand that times are hard. But what's really helpful is making sure that you like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share. Sharing is a super impactful way to support my work. It really helps get my word out there, helps people realize that they're smart enough to do this, and just tells the algorithm that I'm a pretty cool person. So thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you next time. Bye.